Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric with you here on a Wednesday night, the eve of the NFL Draft. We can talk about some football, Eric.
Heck yeah! Football. One of my favorite times of the year, where the Dolphins disappoint me with draft picks and see where UCF guys end up. All right.
I don't think you're going to be disappointed this year with the Dolphins. I think you'll be happy. I think you'll be about as happy as you were last year with Tua. I think you'll be pretty happy about it. So we're going to start by talking NFL Draft. We got lots to talk about. A great weekend for UCF tennis. Wow, what a time they had. Both men's and women's winning the American. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about golf. The women are back in the NCAA tournament. In the NCAA regionals, I should say. And we also got baseball turning the corner a little bit here, Elo.
We hope.
They're heating up.
I gotta go after some of the cynics out there. I was very optimistic on the social media, and they were very pessimistic. So I got a question for those people.
You know what? I am totally okay with you zigging when everyone else zags, Eric.
Yeah, we'll get into that later on. We'll get into that.
Softball also a little bit later, and a new record set in UCF Track. But we start with the NFL Draft, and for that we bring in our resident NFL Draft expert, Andrew Gluchov.
He's in his war room. He's in
the war room. Here, right? That's why his audio isn't so good, because he doesn't have that fresh microphone that he likes to show off to us every single time. Drew, what's up, dude?
I am remote tonight. I am not at home.
Are you trying to get secret information on what the Browns are doing, or who's going to draft UCF players?
Yeah. You have Kevin Costner on speed dial? What's the deal?
Oh, gee, I do not want to trade away my hometown team's first round draft pick.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. We'll go. All right, let's start. We're going to talk about the UCF guys that are going to come available. Who we think is going to get picked. Who we think is going to have an undrafted free agent situation. The consensus right now is that the top two UCF players who could get picked, and it could be either or who goes first, are Richie Grant and Aaron Robinson, the two defensive backs. Officially, Richie's listed as a safety. Aaron's listed as a corner. Aaron's gotten a lot of pre-draft pub. I think Richie's kind of flown under the radar, but everyone's just like, Richie's a no-brainer. He's got to go somewhere. I'm looking at what is this, drafttech.com, because that was the first place that I clicked on when I was Googling. And they have Richie as 30th overall, which would put him in the first round. I think it's a possibility that one of these two guys could go late first round. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a definite possibility. It's a possibility. Drew, who do you think is going first, and when do you think they will go?
I think it's going to be Richie Grant, but I think he's going to slide in the early second round. It's more of just a demand thing. There's more demand for corners, and one of the things that makes Aaron Robinson so valuable in the corner market is his versatility. One of the things that Randy Shannon used him for is he used him like Jabril Peppers, except as opposed to being a safety. But he moved him everywhere. He played corner. He on the outside. He played against the slot. He played as a third linebacker. He was very versatile, but he's obviously undersized for that linebacker aspect. But that gives a lot of knowledge and experience that translates well to the NFL. But Richie Grant is better as far as positional rankings go. Depending on who you ask, he's top three. He's 1, 2, or 3. Just somewhere in the middle of there. And I mean, he looks real good. And, 2-star prospect, has really grown. And I think ultimately Grant will be the first guy picked, only for the fact of need.
Interesting, because I feel like could either of these guys change positions? Like, I know Richie's listed as a safety, but could he move to corner depending on where he goes? And likewise, could Aaron Robinson possibly move to safety at all, or are we just thinking that that's where they're locked in right now? I feel it's more likely Richie could kind of play both positions. But what do you think?
Well, from his positional drill analysis, I mean, he covered like Grant. Richie Grant covered like a corner, but is playing as a safety. So could he convert? Yeah, he could convert. Do I think he will? No, I think there's more of a chance of Aaron Robinson converting because he's already shown proof of that versatility. He can play center field. He can play up tight on man, and he can play as a zone backer. So if anyone's going to move positions, it's going to be Aaron Robinson. But I think both are pretty locked in where they're at.
All right, so you're saying day 2 for both of them?
I'm saying day 2 for both of them on the early half of day 2.
Okay. Who's the next guy who's going to go off the board? We've been hearing a lot about Tay Gowan being a possibility. Tay certainly has the size to be an NFL defensive back. There's been some grumblings about could Jacob Harris even be the next guy selected? Who do you like as the third guy to go?
It's Tay Gowan. He looked really good in 2019. He did himself an NFL disservice by opting out of 2020 and then not coming back to school. Not going to judge him for that decision. Everyone does their own thing. But from a strict NFL standpoint, he did himself a disservice because he only had 1 year at UCF. That's not a lot of film. Sometimes it works out really well, like with Mike Hughes, but Tay Gowan needed a little bit more. That 2019 defense was stout. Statistically, the best defense in the Frost Heupel era by far was that 2019 squad, and he was a big part of it. So, I mean, you have very high hopes for him. He didn't look all that rusty going through his pro day. A little bit here and there, but for the most part, he looked pretty smooth. He had a good shift within his hips and was able to move rather well. But you just wish there was more film. But I think he still could end up being a day 2 pick, maybe 3rd or 4th round, fourth at the worst. But I think 3rd round is a very realistic very realistic observation for Tay Gowan.
Elo, go ahead.
Well, I first of all, I agree. I think Richie Grant's going to be the first player. Mel Kiper, by the way, who released his final board. This is the board they're going to highlight, depending on which coverage you watch. If you watch the Kiper version on ESPN, he's got his big board. He's got Richie Grant number 50 overall. He's the number 2 safety ranked in Mel Kiper's board. And he actually wrote about Richie Grant, which I'm actually trying to grab right now. He's very high on Grant. He's got Robinson 76 on his board, and he's got McGowan at 96 from what I'm looking right now at this board on ESPN Plus, by the way, as we provides content as well. Another reason why
it's not just streaming, it's also plenty of content, right?
It's just the content I'm giving you people right now. It's Kiper's big board, right? The lead in. So I think Grant's a round 2 to round 3. I think I agree with you, Andrew, on your there. As far as where he probably ends up. But I'm going to tell you something. I think I would argue, let me ask you both this. I could make the argument that Richie Grant maybe is the best UCF prospect in the NFL draft. I know you're going to say Mike Hughes. That's kind of he transferred out of Carolina 1 year. If you want to count him, that's fine. But I'm talking from a guy that's played his entire career at UCF. Richie Grant might be the best UCF prospect they've had in the NFL draft in maybe closer to a decade. Since when? Because I think it's been a while.
Well, I don't know. You tell us since when.
I think you could go back a decade. I think he's better than all the guys that have been drafted recently. I think he could be a Pro Bowl safety. I think he is that good. and I really believe that he's going to get drafted. So I would be surprised if he wasn't the first UCF guy drafted.
To be honest with you, I think that whoever does take him, I think if he goes where you say he's going to go, and I do think that's probably where we go, early second round, he's going to be a steal. People are going to be looking back on that saying, man, look at all these teams that passed on Richie Grant.
Yep. Here's what Mel Kiper says on his article about Richie Grant. Grant is one of my favorite players in this class. He could play as a deep safety or close to the line of scrimmage. He has 10 interceptions and forced 6 fumbles in his career. And then, how about this for a stat to know? Richie Grant has committed 1 penalty in 2,381 defensive snaps.
Wow. That's crazy.
How about that?
That's crazy.
First of all, that's a hell of a stat. Second of all, holy smokes, Richie Grant.
It's remarkable, right? Like, I'm telling you, I think he's a steal. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler. I think he's better than all the secondary guys UCF has produced. And I'm trying to think at the top of my head right now. I could make the argument that he's the best pro prospect, if you want, maybe since Bortles. Because Bortles, went number 3, so you have to count him.
Well,
there's a blazing hot take. Go ahead, Andrew.
I gotta say, Bortles was overrated at 3. He was drafted because of his size more than anything else. Obviously, he has not lived up to expectations as a 3rd pick. But that's not really a fair comparison. I think that's actually selling Grant short.
Okay, you want to go further then? You want to go further? Okay, I'm fine with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, he's done it all, and to prove that once again, stars don't really matter. He was a 2-star guy that no one really cared about.
Yeah.
And look how he developed. I mean, it was all about the cerebral aspect of developing. I think the closest guy that it qualifies is Brandon Marshall at that point.
Yeah. And he was a 3rd-round pick from pound for pound. Yeah. I like that comparison.
Draft, after completely tearing it up in the 05 Hawaii Bowl, and everyone took notice, got bumped up to the 3rd round because originally no one really paid much attention to Marshall because Mike Walker was the guy everyone was following. As far as UCF receivers, Marshall's had an outstanding career, and I think Grant's in a great position to do the same.
I agree. That's a good comparison. It's a good comparison because I know some people in the audience right now are like, what about Gabe Davis? What about that? What I'm saying is I think Richie Grant and Brandon Marshall, I like that comparison because Brandon's had a Hall of Fame career. Nobody really, thought that at the time when they drafted him, but he ended up having – I think Richie could have that type of impact. That's how highly I think of him.
Well, and the thing about Gabe Davis,
and I'm scared because I think Belichick's going to steal him too.
I don't want to make a dig on Gabe Davis. That's not fair to him. The problem with Gabe is the fact there's not enough data on him.
Right.
He had his rookie year and that's it. And it's not fair to judge against him for just that 1 year. It's not like he flamed out. No, he's got a lot of potential, but I think.
And he had a pretty good rookie year. To be fair,
he had a great rookie year, and I think the storm.
He'll have a nice career, and I think he'll have a good NFL career. But I'm speaking highly of Richie. That I think he could be a Pro Bowl guy. Like I think he could.
He could be a game changer.
I really do. I love his game. Watching him in person. I mean, Jeff, you've seen him up close.
Yep.
He just has a knack for the ball. That's why I agree with Andrew. I would not move him from safety because he knows. He's like a poor version Ed Reed. When I saw Ed Reed at Miami. He's not Ed Reed. I'm not saying he's Ed Reed. I'm just saying he's got those knack that he's around the ball all the time. And I think NFL teams love
calling the poor man's Ed Reed.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The guy that came to mind for me was Eric Turner. Of course, I'm a Cleveland guy. So
there you go.
Got to turn the clock back a lot. Rest in peace, man. But Eric Turner was an outstanding safety, had a knack for the ball, was able to make really good tackles. And that's something that Richie Grant also does that's unheralded is he makes tackles too. He definitely plays bigger than he is. And yes. I think he has a chance to be a real game changer at his position because, most safeties are either one or the other. They're either a hard hitter or they got hands, and he's got both.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring up the Gowan versus Robinson. Robinson will get higher drafted. I agree with you, Andrew. I've been reading more and more. Even NFL scouts have said that if it's close between two players, they're going to pick the guy that played this past season over the guy that skipped the year. So I think that could hurt Gowan a little bit. Although, let me defend Tay. He was very open on why he made that decision. He's a father. He's thinking as a father. So I don't think we should. I don't think he cared about, hey, if I drop a round. I think he didn't care where he was going to land up in the draft. I think he was worried about his family first, and I think he figured, you know what, wherever I get drafted, I get drafted. So that's kind of my stance on that. But let me go ahead.
I would say I kind of hit it before. I want to make sure that no one thinks that I'm dogging him for making the choice that he did.
Yeah,
I probably would have made the same in the same situation. Family is very important to me too. I was just speaking strictly from the NFL standpoint. He did himself a disservice because it probably hurt him in the draft.
Sure.
But you know what? If you get drafted, all you got to do is get in and let your play do the talking.
Let me ask you both about these two guys, and then we'll move to other guys. Robinson is obviously the higher prospect, and things like that. Could we see a scenario here, though? Because this has kind of weirdly happened to UCF. I think back to Josh Robinson was the big prospect. The guy playing opposite of him was the afterthought, named A.J. Bouye. Well, it turns out Bouye had the better pro career for various reasons. Robinson had injuries, things like that. Any chance we could see this where, yes, Robinson gets drafted higher, but maybe Gowan is the guy that lasts longer, has a better pro career? Because I really liked him when I saw him in the field 2019.
I think that depends a lot on which teams they go to.
Agreed. But
I don't think that there's anything that we can. I mean, sure, there's a possibility that could happen, but I think
I like Gowan a lot.
I don't think that has. I don't think that has. I don't think that where they get drafted, or in terms of which slot they get drafted, it has any bearing on that. I think it entirely.
Well, I'm just saying, if you had
which
to make
teams pick them up and where, and the injury luck. I think you mentioned that's part of it.
Yes.
We can't really say. I don't think that's fair to evaluate that.
I personally like Gowan better than Robinson. And I know I'm in the minority on that, but just as far as watching him, and it's tough because one took the year off and things like that. I know Robinson has more upside. I just think Gowan's going to be that. There's always that secondary guys that get drafted later in the day in the back end that end up being on the roster for a decade.
Yeah, it's true. Let me ask Drew. Let me ask you about the offensive side of the ball, because kind of not a whole lot going on for UCF in terms of early in the draft. Who do you think is the first UCF offensive player to be drafted, if any?
I think it's going to be Trey Nixon. I think he's the most prototypical player on the offensive side. He's got, he's a little bit short, but he's got decent size. A little over 6 feet tall. I don't have the information in front of me. He's got size. He's got a little bit of size. He's got strength. He's got speed, and he's got hands. I mean, he's shown it all, and I think he's got the closest to the complete package on the offensive side of any of the players, and then that'll warrant him getting the first draft pick as far as the offensive side.
Jacob Harris made some big news for himself at the combine at the pro day. I mean, you can see it, right? I mean, you could see the best case scenario happening. He's 6'5", he's 230 pounds, big NFL body, nice big target for some quarterback to throw up to. We know he's fast. We know he's strong. The question is, can he eliminate the drop problems that he had at UCF? Do you see him getting a shot in the draft, or do you see him maybe being like a UDFA project?
I could see a team taking a flyer on him. Late 6th, 7th round. Low risk move. I mean, you can't teach size. You can't teach speed. These are intangibles that either you're gifted with them or you're not. And Harris is a physical specimen. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's agile, he's got everything, but he's got hands made out of stone. One of the talks is moving him to tight end, which actually would be a very natural fit for him. You put 15, 20 pounds on him, which an NFL team should have no problem doing. And he's even said that he's open to moving positions. Tight end would be a normal fit for him, especially for that size.
Yeah, I feel like he could almost be like Evan Ingram in that respect, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to have great hands to be a great tight end. You can be a blocking tight end. He just has to be taught the technique. And I could see a team making a project out of him, because if it works, you've got a great physical force there. If it doesn't work, hey, we tried. It's low risk investment. I can see a flyer being thrown on him.
One of the the guy who I think is like everywhere. I don't just go to, unlike Eric, I don't just go to Kuiper. I kind of go a whole bunch of different places, and I try to figure out a little. I kind of like create like this bell curve in my head of where I kind of see guys ranking. The one guy I cannot get a read on at all from any of the rankings is Marlon Williams. I've seen him as high as 123rd. I've seen him as low as not being drafted at all. What do we know about Marlon Williams?
Marlon Williams is a tough one, because he's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When you watch his game film, he does things so well. He's great at route running. He's got great hands. He can block. He's got agility. He can avoid tackles. He has field awareness.
Unbelievable hands.
Oh, yeah. And then you put him in the drills, and he was terrible, just dreadful in his measurables. He's undersized. He's under speed. He's under agile. Basically, everything that you don't want in a wide receiver from the pro day, that was him in his measurables. But when you look at game film, it's a completely different player. He's a great downfield blocker, which you needed in wide receivers. That's one reason why he ranges so much. And the problem is the NFL sometimes gets stuck with this idea of, we want, big. Well, I've got news. Let's look at my Cleveland Browns. Jarvis Landry, under 6 feet. Odell Beckham, under 6 feet. You can be good and not, have huge size or huge speed, because Jarvis Landry had a terrible 40 before he was drafted. The key is he needs to get on the field. And I can see another team taking a flyer on him late. I think he's undervalued. I think he's a 5th-round value as far as a player, but him falling out of the draft is a very, very
well. The problem is from
situation.
A tape. The problem is really he had that one big year, right? Like he was kind of a role receiver. He didn't really stand out elsewhere. Plus, he had that foot injury at the end of the year, which we don't know a lot about, but I'm sure NFL teams do.
Well, yeah, excuse me, and that kept him out of the bowl game. I think in the last game, he wisely decided to focus on healing. There was no reason for him to play the bowl game at BYU. Definitely didn't need to play that game. It was a cluster to begin with. But the truth is, you're right. He was always the other guy. But Traquan Smith, Gabe Davis. He was always the other guy, and it wasn't until 2020 that he had a chance to shine, especially with Trey Nixon out.
Getting hurt.
When Trey Nixon got hurt and he was out, Jalen Robinson started taking over. One of the knocks against Marlon Williams, which is it was the same knock that hit Traquan Smith and the same knock that hit Gabe Davis, and will probably hit Trey Nixon, is they're viewed as system players. You have this offense designed to just fly down the field, and you basically are just speed burning. That doesn't show much technique to it. That's just physical power, and it's one reason why, if you look at the rankings for quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel's not ranked as high as people would think he was, and it goes back to the fact that he's viewed as a system guy. I think this will be a great opportunity in 2021 for him to shake that moniker, because
with Gus especially.
Yeah, with an offense that's a lot more traditional in its short to medium range play, not focused on the deep ball all the time. But that's going to dog Marlon in the draft more so than anyone else, because that's what his yardage was built on. Was built on those those plays that end up being downfield, down the sideline, and that's not what the NFL's about.
Yeah. The last two guys we got to ask you about are the two backs, Otis Anderson, the slash back, obviously, and Greg McCrae. The biggest issue in looking at both of their evaluations is, hey, really talented, super fast, but they're small. So UDFA projects, both of them, are we thinking?
Yeah, in fact, I think Otis has a better chance of sticking because of his experience as a return man.
Right.
You can be a small guy and be a return man. It's the same thing that may keep Adrian Killens in the league for a little bit. But very rarely do you have a guy that size, excel in the league.
Yeah, he's listed at 5'8", 179.
Yeah, the last guy about that size, his name was Warwick Dunn, who really excelled in the NFL. I mean, he was about 5'8", $185.
Darren Sproles.
Darren Sproles was incredibly built, though. He was
right. He was built like a bowling ball. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different. You don't have that with either McCrae or Anderson. They're not built like a wrecking ball. They're built more like a typical, small scat back. And, there's a possible place for them in the league, but it's going to be really hard to latch on. One of the big things I saw against Greg McCrae is he hesitates a lot. And you're going to have to make your move through the hole a little bit quicker in the NFL. The play doesn't always develop for you. You have to be able to make quicker decisions. But I mean, if they talk to Warwick Dunn and try to go go to that school of running back, there could be hope for him. I don't think either's going to stick though.
Yeah, Greg McCrae is also listed at 5'10", 182.
Yeah,
and I think one of the interesting, I'm looking at Lance Zierlein at the NFL, his analysis, which I think is, thin linear frame, tough to overcome in the eyes of NFL evaluators, but he has tape showing his talent as a slasher with plenty of heart. Sees run lane development faster than many running backs in this draft, and his smooth processing from his eyes to his feet. That's all true. And I think that's what made him the leading rusher on this team 2 of the last 3 years. But again, you're just going to have some teams that we hear this quote all the time, right? It's a numbers game. We're just going to see too many teams that look at him and say, if it's a choice between, a guy who's going to be like our fourth running back and special teamer, right? They're going to choose the guy who's like 6'1", 205 as opposed to a guy who's 5'10", 179. And it stinks because I would love to see Greg McCrae in an NFL uniform, but
yeah, especially in a position that right now is not a priority in the NFL. Teams don't go out of their way to draft running backs.
And the other thing is too, like Greg didn't catch that many passes.
Nope.
And to be honest with you, Otis didn't either, although he was a receiving option. I mean, obviously he was listed as a running back / receiver, but and we know him for making big plays in the passing game, right? But in terms of sheer volume of catches, he really didn't have that many, especially I think, heading into last year, because I felt like Heupel used him way, way more in the backfield than he did outside, right, Drew?
Oh, yeah. It was more Scott Frost who used him as a utility player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Heupel used him more as an exclusive running back. And they didn't do too many checkdowns either. That was actually one thing I noticed during the spring game this past month is the fact they were using the running back as a check down a lot more, which is actually really encouraging because you're going to need sometimes that third and fourth read on plays as opposed to just force it in there and hope for the best.
Yeah. Do you see like Otis as maybe like a kind of like what I thought Adrian Killens would be, like kind of a Tyreek Hill sort of gadget guy?
I mean, he could be. He's more experienced at returning than Adrian Killens. Killens is just a flat-out burner. Otis Anderson, because he's not as fast as Killens, is a little more savvy running the ball.
Although that's not to say he's not fast.
Not to say he's not fast, but I mean, Adrian Killens is really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that's not a dig. It's kind of like trying to say you're not as fast as Usain Bolt. I mean, you may be great, but I mean, come on.
Yeah. Right. Last word to you, Eric.
Well, let's make our predictions here. So let's see if when you guys agree, disagree here. So I think we all on the same page. Richie Grant, round 2, round 3 range.
I'm thinking. Okay, let's do it this way. I want to do it this way. Let's do which guys go day 1, day 2, day 3, and then which guys go undrafted. I'm thinking nobody on day 1, although if we're lucky, we might. Day 2, definitely Aaron and Richie. What do you guys think?
I go with. I agree. No day 1. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with you on that one. I think Gowan's gonna miss out just a little bit. He'll probably go early day 3, but Robinson and Grant definitely day 2.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the round. I'm still getting used to this new format.
It's first round is day 1, first round only.
Yeah.
Round 2 and 3 on. It's like they took the. Remember where it used to be the first 2 days?
Yeah.
They took the first day and split it into 2 days. So the first round is primetime day 1. Day 2 is 2 and 3, and then round 4 through 7 is day 3.
Yeah, I would say, Grant and Robinson will be day 2. One goes maybe mid to late second round. Maybe the other one goes third round. I think Grant will be the first guy taken. Maybe Jacksonville. Maybe Urban.
You know what? I just don't
I hope
whatever.
Not. Jacksonville's where careers go to die.
Please don't send him to Baltimore. For some reason, my entire I keep thinking, God, Richie Grant is just a tailor-made Baltimore Ravens.
It could be. You're right. That's a good one.
No.
And I don't want him to go to Baltimore because I can't stand the Baltimore Ravens.
Maybe he could be a Steeler, too. You never know.
Steeler would be interesting. Don't tell that to Drew, Mr. Brown fan.
Shut your filthy mouth, Eric. I don't want him as a Steeler, and I don't want him as a Ratbird.
Well, then your team should take him and avoid that.
Yeah, how about you guys draft him?
I always say Gowan round 4, 5, so I would go with day 3. I personally don't think any offensive players will get drafted. If they do, I think it's round 7 at best. I think I agree with Andrew. I think the knock of this playing in a system, I think will hurt these guys. I think they're all free agents.
I think we're going to get Tay on early day 3. I think we're going to get – I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're going to get Marlin late day 3 and Jacob Harris late day 3, and then Otis and Greg McCrae go undrafted. I would love to see them drafted, believe me, but I just it's the NFL draft, man. And at that point, to be honest with you, it's like you'd rather go undrafted, right?
Yeah, it gives you the flexibility to kind of
you can pick where you want to go.
Right, and sometimes it looks like you're picking the right spot, and it doesn't always work out. Like Neville Clark the other year, where it looked like he had a sweet spot, and it just didn't work out. But I got 0 on day 1. I've got both Robinson and Grant on day 2. I've got Gowan, Trey Nixon, and I'm going to put Jacob Harris in the end of the draft. Like a day 3.
Wow, so both of you are optimistic here. Okay,
I think that those measurables are just going to be way too much for someone to pass up in round 7.
It's going to be the we can fix him. We can teach him.
Well, the Jets are in this draft, so there would be the team to be dumb enough to do.
Don't do that to Jacob, please.
You gotta catch the football. You gotta catch it. So Marlon Williams is a better football player. Like, this is the problem with the draft. We overthink this stuff sometimes, and not us, but I'm talking about the draft people.
The draft nicks.
Yeah,
the draft people. Are you talking about like people in front offices or
I think they overthink this
build
stuff.
content for a living?
No, not I think the people that make the draft picks. I think they overthink this stuff sometimes, and they get too cute with. Like the Orlando Magic's the great example. You don't want to know the Magic right now are in the bottom because they keep drafting guys with upside and wingspan, but they're not actual basketball players, and that's why they're not as good. Okay, they're not going to find Giannis in every corner. So I think now, granted, around 7, could you take a flyer in Franks? Why not? Right? Whatever. But again, Eric, I like getting football players. Yes.
I'd like to point out that the Orlando Magic beat the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight.
Wow,
that's not exactly a feather to stick in your cap there, Drew.
Isn't that good news?
Isn't that good news
for the Cavs? Isn't that good news for the Cavs?
Yeah, they kind of did the Cavs a favor, didn't they?
The Cavs were bad, and if I'm correct, they were missing Colin Sexton anyway.
Yeah.
Wink. Wink, wink. It's called trying to get draft lottery balls ready to go, man. But no, we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll see. Look, it's nothing against Franks. I think Marlon's the better player, but I kind of agree with you guys. I think he's going to get knocked for a lot of different things. And there's so many good receivers in this draft that I think at some point it's going to get cut off. And I don't think those guys get drafted. I think, and I agree with you guys what you've said about the running backs. But we'll see. You might be right.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it right there. The NFL draft begins on Thursday, April 29th. They're holding it in your hometown. Is that right, Drew?
Yeah, Cleveland.
It is.
Isn't that why that's why you're in the undisclosed look? You're really in Cleveland, aren't you? You're in Cleveland right now.
Well, truth be told, I will be in Cleveland in a couple months, but that's neither here nor there.
Draft will be over by then.
A friend who runs a media business, and he's actually helping do stuff for the draft from a media presentation standpoint. He actually was the DJ for my wedding, and I've got friends who are going to be at the draft. I got relatives who are season ticket holders, so I mean, they're all vested. Do
you know the guy who's going to hand the card to the commissioner and all that kind of stuff?
That I don't know. I haven't really pressed all that hard on it. Okay, I just thought, hey, that's really cool. You're working on the draft.
Simulcast, NFL Network, ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Deportes. Thursday, April 29th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Prime time is the first round. Rounds 2 and 3 on Friday at 7, and then Saturday, May 1st at noon is the rest of it, rounds 4 through 7. Andrew Gluchov, Statboy Drew on Twitter, thank you so much for enlightening us on the NFL draft. We are putting nothing at stake on our picks, but this is one of our big weekends. So I know you'll be watching. I know we'll be watching. It should be a lot of fun. Enjoy it, Drew.
I will. Thank you, guys.
All right, stick around. We come back. Lots more to talk about. Eric and I will riff a little bit on tennis and golf. The country club sports at UCF are doing things, and then we'll also talk a little bit later about baseball and softball and a record in UCF track. Stick around. I'll be right back. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric with you here. Let's talk. Let's head to the country club, Eric.
That's the place we belong.
Yes, exactly. But I'll tell you, UCF belongs near the top of your tennis and golf rankings, and boy, did we have a weekend for UCF tennis. First of all, men's tennis on Saturday, or Sunday rather. I'm sorry, that was
right.
You got
Saturday.
it right. I got it right.
Saturday,
yeah.
Women's
what am I saying? Saturday, the men at home sweep USF to win their first ever American Athletic Conference tournament championship. They had struggled for so long under John Roddick to just get over that hump, right? Just like men's soccer, right? They had come up short in 3 of the last 4 years in the championship, but they finally break through to win their first conference crown since 2005. They do it in dominating fashion. They get the sweep. They picked up the doubles point. Trey Hildebrand actually finished it off, while Gabe DeCamps, who was initially struggled, actually lost his doubles match and then kind of came back and was winning his singles match when the dual match officially ended. Yeah, this was big, and they moved up to number 11 in the ITA.
They're number 9 in the Oracle one now.
Number 9 in the Oracle, right? They right now they are, like we said from earlier this year, bona fide national contender. And what a great moment for John Roddick in particular, who's rebuilt this program into a national contender, and really in a short amount of time. It takes a while to. We talk about like microwave dynasties and stuff all the time. Like football, I think, you can move along pretty quickly, right? Tennis and golf and those sports on the Olympic side, they take a while to develop into a real power, and he has done it quickly here in 4 seasons, and they're going to be one of the teams to watch out for in the NCAAs.
Oh, there's no doubt. They're a national title contender. It helps that they don't have to get on a bus or travel with pretty much the entire postseason will be in their backyard. I tweeted this out on Saturday when they won the championship, and I will say it here on the podcast. When we look back at the Danny White era, the mainstream media obviously will focus on the hires of Scott Frost being maybe the best hire, or maybe Abe, or et cetera. And I get all that. But if you really go pound for pound, the best hire Danny White made in his era was John Roddick, because John Roddick basically helped fix 2 programs. He was named the director of tennis, which is not a position you give, that was a created position. That's how they got him out of Oklahoma. First of all, the fact he even got him to leave Oklahoma was incredible. I remember when that came out, the college tennis world was shocked. So to bring him here, and nothing against the tennis program from before, but let's be honest, the tennis program has been at the bottom. Like, I think if
criminally underinvested.
Right. Like, if we rank the programs, tennis was at the bottom. And to be in now, this will be 3 NCAA tournaments, a conference championship. He hires Brian Konietzko, who has helped turn around the women's tennis program. You've got 2 top conference national title contenders. This is all under John Roddick's watch. We had John Roddick on earlier this year. I recommend if you go back to our archives and listen to that. And just the vision he's had for these tennis programs has been remarkable. It's been a remarkable story, an underreported story, how this tennis program has gone from where it was to where it is today. It's really, to me, it's the story of the year right now in UCF athletics. As far as on the field, obviously the coaching changes in football will be the top stories we look back. But I'm talking just from an incredible story in college athletics. What this tennis program has formed is incredible.
They finished the season, or they haven't finished the season. They're still playing. They're 21-3. They've won 13 in a row. 13 in a row. Their last loss was to Georgia, who is number 17 in the country at the time. They lost 4-2. They lost, at the wire to Texas A&M at home. They lost 5-2 to Florida in the season opener, and I think if those 2 teams played again today, it would be a much different situation. But right now, looking at the Division I men's team rankings, and this is up to the second, the Oracle ITA. You're right. They're not 11th. They're 9th. And behind Texas A&M, who they lost to. Behind Florida, Texas A&M's at 8. Florida's at 2. So, and Florida's at 20-2 overall. Number 1 is Baylor at 28-4. But, this is a team that I think is very dangerous in this field. And could really pose a problem for somebody, especially when you consider the fact that, like you said, Eric, they're going to be playing a lot of this tournament at home. I think the first 2 rounds are at predetermined sites, but they haven't announced that yet, right?
No, I agree with you. They have not announced it yet, but I would assume they're in good position to host that as well. Yeah.
So we're going to have to wait until we see what is the selection show? It's
Monday, May 3rd, 6:30 on NCAA.com. The same day as the women. The women will be at 6 Eastern. The men will be at 6:30. So that's when we'll know the brackets.
All right. And just to update you on some of the individual rankings, Gabe DeCamps right now is in 10th in the singles rankings. Liam Draxel of Kentucky is number 1. And then in the doubles rankings, Trey Hildebrand and Bogdan Pavel are top 10. Now they're at number 9 with a 9-1 record. Let's see, I think there was one more. Yeah, Gabe DeCamps and Trey Hildebrand, 8-4 together, 37th. So that gives you an idea of where UCF's individual players are in the double, because that's important for after the team championships is the singles and doubles championships too.
Right, really, and the individuals will get announced as well on that selection show. You're right.
And watch out for Juan Pablo Grassi-Mizuki too, who was the most outstanding player of the tournament. He's 87th right now in the country. I wonder if he's going to get a bid in singles. I don't know how many they let in, but I think he might be on the outside looking in just barely. But on the other side, okay, we talked about the men on Saturday. On Sunday, the women got their chance, and it was a little bit more of a battle, I think, than most were anticipating. But then again, it was against Tulsa, so of course it's going to be a battle. But they got it done, 4-1. They win 3 matches in 3 days against South Florida, Houston, and Tulsa in order to win the American. It's the second consecutive American Athletic Conference Tournament Championship. Of course, remember last year it was canceled. But they finished they were through the conference tournament at 18-4, having won 6 in a row. And I think that they're where the men are kind of really coming on as and making a lot of noise. I feel like the women's team is really flying under the radar right now, and they're going to be a tough out.
Oh, there's no doubt. And they have the veterans that were part of the Sweet 16 team in 2019, so they've been through this before. I think they know what's ahead of them is the big picture there, but they're
not going to be starstruck by anything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they were before. I mean, they made a Sweet 16 run. They were lost out in Pepperdine, which is a tough place to play anyway.
Right.
But I feel like there is a little bit of a stick in their craw, I think, from that, don't you think?
I think so. I think they have that experience. That's why I think it'll be interesting to see where they get seated when the brackets come out and how the field looks. But they're ranked number 8 right now in the latest poll. So they're veteran, they're deep. That match in the championship was weird because they had to take it indoors because of the weather. So
right.
The championship was described on indoors. So unfortunately, the unfortunate thing about that is you didn't get to see the women's play on ESPN Plus. They got put back to, I believe, the USTA stream, which is great. But they took care of business indoors. And that's an adjustment period to go from, you're planning going outdoors. I'm sure there was an adjustment period there, but they overcame it. They're deep. They're talented. They can make deep runs. There's no, the expectations for both programs is to try to get to that NCAA championship in the last week or two in their backyard where they don't lose.
Mm-hmm. They're 18. Once again, they're 18-4, 8th in the country, just behind NC State and ahead of Baylor. 7 teams in front of them from 7-1. NC State, Florida State, UCLA, Pepperdine, who they lost in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina. North Carolina is undefeated at 26-0. But I would put UCF up against any of those teams. I think they can run with them. They can run with any one of them. I think there's no doubt about that.
Especially in their backyard. I mean, they've built a home court advantage, and I think they'll get a lot of support. I think people are starting to catch on to this because this is legit here. These are 2 teams that could win the national championship or at least make a deep run into it. And that's it's pretty remarkable story. Again, what John Roddick and Brian have built. It's insane that we're saying that, but that's where we're at.
Valeria Zaleva, who is obviously key for UCF, their top singles player in the ITA rankings, 17th in the nation in singles. UCF also has Rebecca Stolmar at number 37 in the singles rankings as well. So we may very well see both of them in the singles tournament when we get around to it in the NCAAs. All right. Let's talk a little bit about golf. UCF women's golf, or let's start with men's golf, actually. I want to start with them because they finished in 4th place in the American tournament, and that's pretty much the end of their season. Am I right, Eric? Because
I mean,
not necessarily. Okay,
so
tied for 5th, I should say.
Next week they will be in the selection show for the men. Will come out next Wednesday.
That is next week. Okay.
The men's ranking is 68. I mean, you talk about a bubble. That's the bubble. I mean, it's a 72-team field in golf, so that could go either way. I do think geography plays a role in that to some extent. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Well,
if that's the case, then I think they should be in good shape. We're in Florida, after all.
Yeah, but I wouldn't make plans. I wouldn't make plans for the tournament. It's really going to be tight, and I don't know if they'll make it or not at 68. If they were I wish they were in the 50s. If they would, I think if they would have had a better showing in the American, that might have helped them in. I think they're going to fall short, but I'm not going to close the book either. So I think we should leave it open and hope for the best next week for them. But certainly a 5th place, being in their backyard, I think they probably thought they could do better than that. But the league is strong. And so we'll see what happens.
Now, countering that, the women's team, they found out today that they are in the NCAA regionals. They will be heading to Louisville. They're the number 9 seed in the Louisville regional. This is and they did receive that at-large bid to the NCAA regionals, despite the fact that they finished fourth in the American Championship, which head coach Emily Marin had said after the match that she was kind of disappointed in how they played that tournament. They were first after the first round. Emily said, this is the quote from her, according to UCF, quote, "We are a little disappointed in our finish today. It takes all 5 players stepping up, and we just didn't get that. I'm proud of Pat Pidden for her best finish of the spring. We're excited for an opportunity to compete in the NCAA regionals in a few weeks." But they still kind of had to sweat it out a little bit, but they
they did and they didn't. I mean, they're kind of, their RPI, their number was like in the 32, 33 range.
33, right.
Yeah, so they were going to get it. I think she was disappointed because they had a chance to they didn't make a run. She was hoping they could make a run at the leaderboard at that last day, and they didn't do it. And I think she was disappointed by that. But as a result, they're a 9 seed in the Louisville regional. It's a very stacked regional. South Carolina, if you read some of the golf people that follow this, they're a national title contender. Auburn is very good as well. And Florida State speaks for itself. Texas, so it's a very loaded deal. But as Coach Marin has told me in the past, and I'm sure has told you, I mean, you're not playing these schools, you're playing the golf course.
Right.
So it's about the golf course there at Simpsonville, Kentucky. She's familiar there, so we'll see how they go. Big thing, too, this is the 7th time in the Emily Marin era they've gotten to the NCAA tournament. Remember, last year they probably would have been a tournament team, but COVID obviously shut that down. And then the 2 years she didn't make it with the team, she got individuals into the NCAA tournament. So, she's now at 7 teams. She's taken 7 teams to the tournament. That ties
in 10
for
years.
The third most. Right. Third most in UCF history right now. She's among, if you count bowl games, Georgia Leary, for example, went to 7 bowl games with UCF. Coach Waller at men's golf, 7 times. Renee Gillespie, UCF softball, 7 times to the tournament. She's top 3 now. She's tied with those group for third most in the history of UCF coaches. Jay Bergman is number 2. I think he made it 8 or 9 times with baseball. Then Amanda Cromwell, 11 times to the NCAA tournament is the best for any UCF coach in history. But Emily Marin, man, you talk about under the radar coach here, the consistency that she's built here at UCF women's golf.
Solid as a rock. Can't ask anything more of that group. And I tell you, it's there. And I mean, what can you say? You can't argue with those results either. I mean, 7 out of 10 years, that's hard to do. I mean, especially in a sport like golf where it's a crapshoot every single time. I mean, you don't know how you're going to come out from day in to day out. Nothing is a sure thing. But they, again, are going back to the NCAA tournament. And they should be a pretty solid contender up in Louisville. The
highest compliment is now it's to the point she's built it where you're surprised if they don't make the tournament.
Right.
That wasn't always the case. That was never always the case prior.
Right.
That people kind of assume they just make it every year. That's not true. So she's on track to be maybe the greatest women's golf coach in the history of the program. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. So congrats to UCF women's golf. And a couple other things that we wanted to pass on. Congratulations to Ana Laura Collado and Pat Pidden, who were both named to the all-conference team. For the American too, and they will be key to UCF if they want to make it to the NCAA championship, which would be, I think it's the top. Is it the top 4 make it? I think, Eric.
I don't remember how the numbers work.
I forget exactly how it was.
I think it's the top 4 in each region. Might be, but let's just the easiest. Yeah, finish very high, and the top 4 you probably get it. Yeah, that's probably easy. But
all right, so. And we're hoping to have Emily, hoping to hear from Emily.
Yeah, in the next week. Next week, we hope to get her on before they head out.
It's such a great interview. I love talking to Emily Marin. She's so good.
Fantastic.
By the way, also A+ Twitter follow for you.
Amen to that. I agree.
In the UCF community, A+ Twitter follow. She is the best.
Well, you know she'll be doing 2 things this weekend. She will be obviously preparing her team for the tournament and watching a UCF alum in the PGA Tour, isn't she, Jeffrey?
That's right, and this is a good story. This is such a cool story that came out, and it went viral on the PGA because of a video that they showed. All right, so every golf tournament, every PGA golf tournament, they have a Monday qualifier where local guys can actually try and qualify for the tournament. And this week the tournament is this week's tournament is the Valspar Championship, which is being held in the Tampa area, and you've probably seen the video already. But Michael Visacki won the qualifier and will participate in the tournament. His first ever PGA Tour appearance. Now, Michael Visacki played at UCF for one season in 2012-2013 for Bryce Waller. Was pretty good as a freshman. Probably had a shot to be, to improve as a college student, but decided after 1 year to just turn pro. So he played on a minor tour. He's been on a minor tour for the better part of this decade. 164 starts on the West Florida tour, and he's won 37 events on the West Florida tour, and these are events that are like 1 or 2 day events, and he's won some about $140,000. But over the course of like 10 years, that's not a lot of money. And I actually linked to his profile in the story, and you see the money he's won. It's like $1,000 a year, $250 there. Almost like sometimes he's like covering his green fees, right? Well, he wins the qualifier on Monday, and he calls his dad, and there's a camera right in front of him, and you can hear him talking to his dad, and he's in tears, fighting back tears, talking to his father, telling him, "Dad, I made it." And wow, what a moment it is for him. After, that's a real golf life story, right? Playing in all these tournaments and keep fighting to get the dream, to achieve the dream. And he finally did it. He finally did it. After all of those tournaments, these little tournaments up and down Florida, he's going to get the chance to play in a PGA event. And shout out to our boy, Anthony Lenahan, who gave us an update on and kind of filled us in on everything. So the story is, he obviously he doesn't get his tour card. He's only qualified for this week for that event. If he finishes in the top 10, he gets to go to the next tournament. If he wins the tournament, then he gets his tour card and an exemption to next year's Valspar. Okay, so that alone is a that's something to play for. But I don't think he's even thinking about that. I think he's just happy that he got in. And wow, just what a moment for Michael Visacki, and he's kind of become the local fan favorite this week as well, getting ready for the Valspar Championship, which will be Thursday through Saturday. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, and I know he's going to be the guy who UCF fans are going to be keeping a close eye on too, Eric. Right?
No question about that. By the way, that team he was in 2013, that's a pretty legendary team at UCF.
Yeah, they went to the NCAAs, and he actually played in the NCAAs.
Yes, finished tied for 16th in the NCAA championships. They finished in the top 26 in the rankings by GolfStat. They won 3 tournaments that year. They finished 3rd in the Conference USA Championship. They finished runner-up in the NCAA Tempe Regional to advance to the NCAA Regionals. That's one of Waller's best teams, and you could argue maybe his best team, since that's it's right there, they're right in the mix there. But you look
he was a freshman and made the rotation late in the season. That's not easy to do.
Well, especially the roster he had. He had Greg Eason, who is one of the more decorated UCF players. I think was his Conference USA Player of the Year in his career and all in that. And then a kid by the name of Ricardo Gavea, who is playing professionally in Europe. And I actually ranked him in my top 10 as far as UCF athletes of all time, because he's participated in the Olympics. He's had in the pro careers, he's been playing in the European League. So as of this weekend, that team now could say they've had 2 guys that have gone on to play professionally in the tour, either in Europe or in the United States. So that's a stacked team, and that's kind of why he kind of got lost in the shuffle. He was a youngster compared to those guys.
Right. Greg Eason has shown up a couple times over in Europe. He's actually from England.
That's right.
and he's won. He's had a top 10. He had a second place or five top 10 finishes in his career. One top 10 finish in his most recent season, 2019. So.
Yeah, Easton, by the way, I gave him, I shortened him on credit. He was the American Conference Player of the Year and a CUSA Player of the Year. You could argue just from a college career only. You could argue that Greg Easton maybe is the best UCF golfer they've had from a college career. Right. Now, I mean, I'm saying that because they've had some tremendous pros that have gone on. One guy that you covered back in your Georgia days, and Robert Damron, maybe he's the one. And Greg, he would probably be regarded as the greatest UCF golfer across the board. Him and Cliff Kresge, who have both played in the PGA. So, but this is an awesome story.
Robert's going to be covering this story, I think, too, on his gig for the Golf Channel. Is he not?
I think he might be right, because you're right. He does some work for the Golf Channel. That would, if I was working at the Golf Channel, that's exactly who I would assign it to. That'd be perfect. That's a good point.
That'll be fun. How about, we'd love to see Robert Damron do an interview and mention UCF with we got to get Robert.
We're going to get Robert.
I want to get him on there because I want to take him back to his second professional win at the in Athens at the Athens. Yeah, I was there. I covered it. It was the Athens Regional Memorial Classic Athens Regional Foundation Classic. He won it in a playoff over a guy named Greg Owen, who is from England, and I was there. Won it with a birdie on the last hole, on the first extra hole. I was there. I interviewed him. It was great. I was like, dude, UCF. He's I think kind of like passed around. He's like, you're a UCF guy, yeah. But we'll have to get Robert. I would love to talk to him about that in his career and how his approach to being an analyst now on TV, because if and his time at UCF, he was an excellent golfer at UCF and was an excellent golfer by every right. In his time as a pro, and now he's on TV, so that'll be fun. All right, took a break. When we come back, we got baseball, we got softball, we got track, we got a few more things to talk about here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're back on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric with you here, talking about UCF softball and baseball, and I want to start with baseball here, Eric Lopez, because they did something that I didn't think even Murph thought was possible. They got a split.
Obviously, he didn't think so. He left. He split. He didn't even want to wait for the season.
He just took off, bailed on Black and Gold Banneret before he had the chance to do it.
Mr. MLB.com guy.
He leaves, and what happens? UCF takes 2 out of 4 from the number 9 team in the country and the number 1 team in the American, the ECU Pirates, and probably could have taken 3 out of 4. They get the series split with the win on Sunday, and they split, sorry, let me go back and talk about it. So ECU won the first game 4-2 on Friday. It was a doubleheader. UCF won the second game, though, 10-5, put a 10 spot on the board. Saturday, Pirates win 11-8. That was a game where UCF had a couple shots to win it. But the Knights won game 4, 6-1. And on top of that, this is despite the fact that Colton Gordon did not pitch for UCF this weekend for what we don't know the reason why. I mean, it could be an injury. Lovelady could have decided to rest him. We don't know. But 2 out of 4 ain't bad in this case, especially against a team as strong as ECU is. We talked about the power that they presented to plate. Really good pitching, but UCF stood toe-to-toe with them throughout this entire week, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a really well-played series. They earned that split. Jack St. Clair was the story on the last game of the series. He was tremendous, allowing just 1 run, striking out 7.
What a great start for that kid, huh?
His best start. Yeah. His best start. And look, they got a split. How significant was that split? Their RPI going into that series was 137. It jumped all the way to 88. They have not been under 100 the whole season from an RPI standpoint. So it gave them a life pulse, honestly, for the season. Now they can say they have 2 wins over East Carolina and 2 wins against Ole Miss. Those are top 15 teams. If they can get on a run now, they won 3 out of 4 against South Florida the weekend before. You get a split against ECU. If you could play your best, now we don't know what Colton Gordon's status is. We don't know what the situation is there. We'll hopefully find out. We'll definitely find out this weekend when they play Memphis. But if this team can go on a run, they got 16 conference games left. All right. They got 4 with Memphis this weekend. They've got 4 at Tulane, which is looming big. Tulane is the second best RPI team right now. Probably D1 Baseball has them as the second team as far as the tournament team, because I do think the American will get at least a second team in, if not more. It's been a down year. But if you look at the geography of college baseball, a lot of South schools, in particular SEC and ACC schools, are going to host. You kind of need teams from the American to get into the tournament. So I think the committee will look for that. And I think UCF has a shot if they can go finish strong. Now they're hosting Memphis, host Wichita State, at Tulane, host Houston. If they can go 12-4, let's say 12-4, that would put them at 31-25. I think that gets them right in the mix into the bubble going into the conference tournament, which is pretty remarkable considering the hole they've dug themselves into.
That also would put them in conference. They would be, you said 12-4. They would be 21-11 in the conference,
which is the 5th strongest conference this year in college baseball. Yeah. I think that would certainly make a statement there. And they would get them back in the mix. And the thing about the Love Lady teams here, they usually finish the season strong. So you hope that this is the turning point here, that they can start playing their best baseball. And I think they need to pound Memphis this weekend. They need to win at least 3 out of 4 there. And I think the season still has a shot here to be salvaged. And look, I understand a lot of people have already turned, they're upset about the season. It's kind of funny how, baseball people turn their backs on them. Here's my question to you, Jeff. Why are our expectations for this baseball program out of whack? And here's why I say that. I feel like we have this expectation that the baseball program should be a top 25 team every year. And yet, since 2004, which was when they made the regional final in Tallahassee when they were a member of the A-Sun.
That was their last year in the A-Sun.
05 was their last year. They didn't make the tournament.
05, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
04 was the last year they made the tournament as an A-Sun member. They were a win away. They ran into Stephen Drew in Florida State. Since 05, this program has only made the tournament 3 times. Won 1 conference title, which was in 17. That was a Lovelady coach team. Why do we? I feel like we kind of keep pushing this narrative that we should be this power in baseball, but the stats and the history suggest that we're really not. Like even in the Jay Bergman era, as great as that era was, it wasn't like UCF made the tournament every year. He only made the tournament, I think, 9 times out of like 20 years or forever. So I feel like people have this standard, like they think baseball should be like football, and it's not. You look at South Florida; they have not had success in the postseason as far as making the NCAA tournament consistently either. I would argue that Miami hasn't been Miami in a decade or so. In fact, one of the latest projections doesn't even have a team from the state of Florida hosting a regional right now. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be better. I'm not saying that there's not reason to be disappointed. I think Coach Lovelady and the staff would be disappointed where they're at right now. But I also feel it's gotten carried away, in my opinion.
Well, I think what you're talking about is the difference in competition between the Atlantic Sun era and the Conference USA / American era. And I think in baseball, you can put the two together because there are obviously a number of teams that traveled with UCF to the American from Conference USA who are competitive in the American in baseball now. Tulane, ECU, obviously among them. In the A-Sun, this is the part that's easy for everyone to forget. In the A-Sun, there were basically 2 schools that can compete with UCF on a yearly basis in the A-Sun. Florida Atlantic and Stetson. That's it. All right? Georgia, once in a while, you'll have a run from a team like Georgia State or whatever, or Mercer or something. But that was pretty much it. It was a bit of a surprise when UCF would lose one of the 3 games against one of those teams that weren't FAU or Stetson. All right? Those were the big series every year. And in the years where it didn't work out for UCF, it was one of those 2 teams that actually got it done. The talent in the American right now is much better. And you've said this many times before, where the American does rank near as one of the top conferences in the United States in baseball year in and year out, and still does, even despite the fact
it's down by their standards. Yeah,
it's down by their standards. And I think that part of that has to do with this is the first year that UConn's not in the league, and UConn is traditionally very good in baseball.
Yeah, Coach Penders, that hurt. That hurt a little bit.
Right. That's like losing UConn. That hurt. I think that hurt baseball more than basketball.
Absolutely, I agree. That's a hot take. I get that. But I do agree, Jim Penders and UConn, that hurt the baseball more because that was an extra team in the field. Whereas,
and they were consistent. Like UConn basketball, since Jim Calhoun retired, has been on a steady decline. I think that's pretty clear. But UConn baseball, they were a favorite to win the American every single year.
They were a tournament team. You could count on them to be basically a tournament team. Correct.
So they were as sure a thing as you would get in the American. So. This year you got Tulane at 10-1 right now in the league. They're in first place. ECU at 10-2, and all of a sudden, right when everyone was ready to throw in the towel, look who's lurking in third place. UCF at 9-7.
Yep.
So, like you said, if they can put this together down the stretch, if they can get 3 out of 4, if they can win 3 out of every 4, I'm not saying that they have to win 3 of 4. But if they can win, 3 out of every 4 and get
that's kind of what I did 12-4. That's what I did 12-4.
To reemphasize what you're saying, 12-4 down the stretch, and then if you get a good showing in the tournament, maybe you get to the championship game. Who knows? This is one of those years again. This could get real interesting.
Right, baseball's a long year. I just don't get I get the negativity, I get the frustration, but I'm looking at it right now. Jake Bergman. They made the tournament 9 times in the 25 years he was there. It wasn't like we were there 22 out of 25.
Right.
Look.
Although 9 out of 25 ain't bad, to be honest.
No, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying, like, people, I think there's a lot of people that think that baseball should be the tournament every year. And I got to tell you, college baseball, of all the sports, probably has the most parity across the country.
Right.
The difference between number 1 and number 50 in college baseball is not much. Not much at all. And I just don't I just don't get the negativity. Like, Greg Lovelady can coach. He got Wright State to a regional final. He's won a conference championship here. They've been one of the last 4 teams out the last couple times. I think they would have been a tournament team last year. I think baseball got hurt the most of all the casualties of the COVID sports getting canceled last year. I think baseball got hurt the most because I thought that team was his best team he's had, and I think they would have been a title contender, and they would have made a tournament, and it's always going to be a what if there. And I get that. Look, this year a lot of things haven't gone well. Injuries, things like that have hurt this team. But I don't, I'm not waving the white flag on this team. I think this team has still got an opportunity. But they got to win. They got to win games. And I think they got to get to that 31-32 win mark. And I think if they do that, which would include a series win over Tulane on the road, they could be that mix to be that second or third team from the American and maybe sneak into the tournament, assuming they pick up a couple other wins in the conference tournament. So let's see what happens. That's all I'm saying. Let's see what happens. Stop being so, being snarky with your comments every time I'm trying to be positive on the baseball front.
I have a feeling this rant is for an audience of 1.
Well, just like, look, they split with ECU. I didn't expect that. Did you? I mean, they played well. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. And look, if they lose to Memphis, then that's disappointing. But I also think we got to look. I've been to John Giuliano Park. The renovations have been good. I've also been to Dick Hauser Stadium. I've been to Mark Light. Those are the 2 great baseball stadiums. Like I think there's a lot. This baseball job.
That's the Yankee Stadium in Fenway Park of college baseball.
Right. I just think there's a lot more. There's a lot more hurdles that I think people realize when it comes to UCF baseball. And I know that sounds like I'm making excuses, and I'm not. And I think Greg Lovelady would be the first to tell you they're disappointed where they're at right now. But I also don't think their season's over, and I don't think the program is in this massive trouble that some suggest.
Yeah, season is far from over right now. And I always go back to, you talked about parity in college baseball. I always talk about it before. I watched the team that I thought was by far and away the best in the country, Georgia, get beat.
Gordon Beckham and company. Yeah.
Gordon Beckham, and they got beat by Fresno State.
Right, a 4 seed in a regional.
Who barely snuck into the tournament that year. And then if you're like, yeah, well, Jeff, that was 11 years ago. Guess what? Coastal Carolina, 2016, won the College World Series. And they beat mighty Arizona. So just, you never know. There is so much parity in the sport, and that's what makes it difficult. It's
hard to make the tournament.
It's hard to be consistent at that consistent.
Yes.
Year in and year. And by the way, it's only going to get harder with the rules now, with the transfer portal and with the minor leagues changing now, right?
Yeah, I agree.
You're going to have a distribution of better players throughout the country, so it's going to be harder to be consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just, like I said, look, a lot of things haven't gone well for this team. I mean, we don't know what happened with Colton Gordon right now. Hopefully he'll be back this weekend. We don't know. Remember, they've lost guys due to injury. Some guys have struggled. Baseball's such a fickle sport, right? I mean, not to I would do this normally in honor of Murph. Gary Sanchez is a great example. Like 2-3 years ago, right? You as a Yankee fan, you're thinking this guy could be a Hall of Fame catcher, tremendous power, all-star. Now the guy's barely hitting 180 and he's splitting time with catching. And he made,
I really didn't need you to remind me of this, but anyway.
No, I understand, but I figured I always did it to Murph, so I have to live on the tradition. But the point is, baseball's such a fickle sport, man. You could be good one day, bad the other. It's such a weird sport, random sport.
All right. Well, speaking of weird random sports, how about UCF softball, Eric Lopez?
Yeah.
Swept the Tigers, back on track, right? After some fits and starts in conference play. They kind of didn't get going, right? But how about the weekend that Gianna Mancha threw? Friday, second game of the series against Memphis, she throws a no-hitter. 13 strikeouts and an 8-0 win. And then on Sunday, she almost pulls a Johnny Vandermeer.
Yeah.
She takes a no-hitter into the 7th before it got broken up with a home run. She threw, what did it come out to, Eric? 13 or 12 and one-third innings?
13 innings. Oh, 13. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. It would have been 12 innings plus, basically, of no hits.
12 plus innings of no-hit ball.
Because they had
amazing
them the first day. Yeah.
Right.
No, 18th no-hitter in program history. She was dominant. I mean, they dominated Memphis. They needed to dominate Memphis. Memphis was the worst team in the league. It was a good team to play to get your offense back healthy a little bit, get some confidence back. And their pitching was dominant, and they needed to do what they needed to do, which was sweep Memphis, get to 34 wins, which, by the way, with their next win, that matches their 2019 season. With their next win, whenever that happens, that'll be the most wins they've had since 2016. So, that was positive. It was a good bounce back after a tough Wichita State series. But this team's fine. Look, they're 31 in the RPI. They're going to make the tournament. It's a matter of now finishing strong and seeing what happens. Now, the conference situation's kind of a long shot, but that's okay. What you want to do now is kind of get ready, finish strong here. You got Ole Miss, who's really good. Then South Florida. And then you got the conference tournament in Tulsa. You want to finish strong here, try to win the conference tournament. You need a lot of help to win the regular season. I wouldn't bank on that, but it's a strong team. And Shannon Doherty's tremendous. Jada Cody. By the way, UCF, 52 home runs as a team, breaking the record held by the 2005 team, which you were witness to in person, for most home runs in a single season. This team's already done that in 46 games. I think the 05 team did it in 77 games, to give you an idea.
UCF is there are 7 teams that play softball in the American. They are one of 4 who are above 500. Houston, ECU, and Memphis are the ones bringing up the rear. But there's this really big logjam up at the top, Eric, with Tulsa and USF tied at the top at 12-3 in the conference. Wichita State at 15-4-1, UCF at 13-6-1. This is going to be a real ringer down the road for softball right now.
By the way, credit to the league. The league is, again, number 5. It sounds like a broken record. They're the 5th strongest conference in college softball this year. That's even with Houston struggling. Imagine if Houston was up to the par where they normally would be. This would probably be a top 4 league. So, Wichita State's very good. They just knocked off Oklahoma State the other night. Again, who's ranked in the top 10, Oklahoma State. South Florida, they have the best pitcher in the country, in the league, I should say, Georgina Korick. They're making their move. Tulsa's very good. Dallas is a nice pitcher. I think this league is a 3-bid league, could be a 4-bid league by the time the selection Sunday arrives on May 16th. It's a strong league. It's not like UCF's losing to bad teams, is kind of my point. I know that people were disappointed, and rightfully so, losing the Wichita and Tulsa series, but it's not like they're losing to bad teams, and I think I have to remind people of that.
This Ole Miss series that's coming up. What do we know about the Rebs right now?
Probably one of the surprises of the year. Ole Miss, Jamie Traxel's the first-year head coach, came over from Minnesota. That was the big off-season move in college softball coaching. She led Minnesota to the Women's College World Series. Ruben Felix, our friend, who used to be UCF assistant, was the interim coach and an assistant at Ole Miss for many times, but was not retained. A lot of people didn't have high expectations this year. They thought it'd be a rebuild team, but they've been really good, 31-16. This is a top 20, depending on which poll you look at, this is a top 25 series. They got a great pitcher in Anna Borgen, who's 10-4 with a 1.5 ERA. I would expect UCF to see her on Friday night. She's a senior. They've got good pitching with a 2 ERA. Offensively, they got some talented players. Paige Smith has some power. Interesting, a familiar name on the roster is Autumn Gillespie, who might be familiar to some softball fans. She was at UCF here in 2016 and 17, transferred to Ole Miss and reunited with Ruben Felix and Mike Smith. So she's been at Ole Miss since 2018. So it's kind of funny that here it is in her super senior year. She'll be facing, we talked about Riley Buck in a recent episode. Here's Autumn Gillespie, who's had a pretty good career at Ole Miss. So UCF will get to see her. It's a very tough series. You're going to Oxford. You're going to an SEC place. Very interested to see how they match up. Interesting to see how they do the pitching matchups there with Aaliyah and Gianna. Do they use both of them for 3 games, and then who pitches the 3rd game? But it's a good series, a very good series, 2 good teams. The winner of this series probably stays up or moves up in the top 25, and the loser probably drops out, but who cares? It's both of these teams are tournament teams, and both trying to improve their resumes.
8 games left for UCF before they come back into conference. It's a long
7 games. 7 games left.
7 games. I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought it was for some reason. I keep thinking it was a 4-game series against Ole Miss. It's a 3-game set. They come back home for 4 against South Florida on May 7th through the 9th, including the doubleheader on Saturday. And you'll be calling those, right, Eric? When they come back home for South Florida. That's
the plan. Now, there's a chance that ESPN might pick up one of those games nationally. We'll find that out early this week. We'll see. So that would not be good for me personally, but it'd be good for everybody else. So
good for the program.
Yeah, exactly. And that's senior weekend, by the way. So
yeah,
and that could have regular season title implications either with UCF or South Florida. Likely it will. And then you have Corrick and you got Aaliyah White and Jasmine. It'll be their final weekend at home, likely. So it'll be emotional with that rivalry, which has been, that wasn't get played last year. By the way, depending on when you listen to this, since by the time this listens, the regional host sites will be announced. It'll probably be 20 sites will be announced for 16 spots. That's what I've heard. So that will give you an idea probably where UCF will end up. You'll have a pretty better idea, which probably will be Gainesville or Tallahassee.
South Florida's got a pretty easy weekend coming up. They're playing ECU.
That's correct. ECU with Allison Kime doing commentary on ESPN Plus with Drew Felios.
Good for Allie getting back in there, huh?
A little weird to be doing Bulls games, but, hey, man, you
won't hold it against her.
Paychecks are paychecks.
That's right. So, all right. So, Ole Miss, that series starts on Friday at 7. No word on TV for that
SEC
one.
Network
SEC
Plus.
Network Plus?
Yeah,
Okay,
unlike Memphis, who decided who could not stream the softball series because they're fairly short-handed staff-wise. Ole Miss does not have that problem. It will be all 3 games will be on SEC Network Plus.
And you can get that through the ESPN Plus app, right?
Should be able to. Yep.
Okay. All right. So that'll wrap it with softball. Last thing we want to talk about, track and field. We don't talk a lot about UCF track and field, but we need to start paying real close attention because we got a real star in the making out here. UCF had their home event this past week at the Knights Invite. The star of the day was Renaya Jones. She competes in the 100-meter hurdle. She's a freshman. All right. She snaps off a new school record, not just a freshman record, which she already had this year, a personal record and a new school record in the 100 hurdles of 12.73. Now, how good is that? That time qualifies her to try out for the U.S. Olympic team. That's how good that was. Smashed Jackie Coward's old school record by almost 1/10 of a second. And Jackie tried out for the Olympics a couple times too. Now, she's that good, okay? But Renaya, wow, congratulations. She was fighting back tears in the video you could see we posted on our nightcap this past week when she realized what she had just done. Not just breaking the school record, but an Olympic qualifying time. Wow, what a moment for her, and what a moment for UCF Track and Field, which, we've got some hurdlers out here at UCF that we've had for quite some time, even going back to Jackie and a couple other folks we've had. But to have a freshman post this kind of a mark is really, really amazing. And wow, future's looking really bright for UCF Track and Field. We wanted to get that shout out out there because what a run. What a run.
Dana Boone, who's took over a couple years ago, might have been one of Danny White's last hires, maybe. I have to look back at the time period there, but might have been one of his last hires as far as a head coaching is concerned. It's kind of quietly building this program back up to what it was under Coach Gilbert when they were in the heyday, where they were NCAA regionals and tournaments, and they've got talent there with Brian Jackson, who kind of runs the cross-country aspect of it and is the assistant. They've kind of built there quietly some talent there on that roster with track and field. And I think, Valerie Lestrade kind of dominated the cross-country. She was just a freshman, made headlines. And you mentioned now Renaya Jones. They're starting to build around. I think track and field here is on the rise. And I think you'll see some possibly here a contender for the making the tournament this year. So salute to Dana Boone and that staff for kind of turning that program around after kind of a couple years of rebuild.
Well, this weekend they're in Jacksonville for the UNF Invitational, which is their last regular season meet before the American Championships, which are in 2 weeks, May 14th. That's hosted by USF out in Tampa, May 14th through the 16th. NCAA East preliminaries are May 27th. So, again, UCF is aiming for that American Championship. Whether or not they're the favorite right now, I don't know. Usually Houston's pretty good at it.
Yeah, when in doubt, just pick Houston.
Leroy
Burrell, Carl Lewis.
They're all coaching there.
Yeah.
So, but they should contend. They should at least contend.
And the bright side is exciting there. Again, the youth on this team is kind of the exciting thing about it. I mean, that's the thing that's really, you could see the turn. I mean, Jones is just a freshman. She's just a redshirt freshman. She's already setting records. And then Lastra is a girl who could be the Anne-Marie Blaney, the next Marie Blaney. She broke a lot of Blaney's records.
Didn't she break Anne-Marie's, a couple of Anne-Marie's freshman records?
Yes, during the cross country and then the indoor season as well. She's more of a distance run. She's the distance runner. But they've got talent here. They're young. And I think these are Coach Boone's recruits here. And I think we're heading back to what it was. Remember the Coach Gilbert, they were dominant teams. They were a perennial Ariel Scott, a national champion.
It was a long slog to get them to where they were in Carol Smith-Gilbert. That's how Carol Smith-Gilbert got the USC job.
Yes, and that's why I think I ranked her top 10, top 11 in the coaches there. But Dana Boone's done a good job. And again, I think that might have been one of, if not the last Danny White head coaching hire, it was one of the last hires he made here at UCF. 2018
was when Dana came in.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think who else would have been hired after that. What time in 2018? Because did Cindy Ball come in? Cindy was summer of 18.
Summer of 18. I just had Dana's. But Dana was hired June 8th.
Ooh, that's like neck and neck right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think they were hired within a week of each other.
That might be true. Well, they both have looked pretty good. So Danny White left us pretty good coaches. Yeah. Breaking news.
Hey, he's left us some pretty good coaches. Also took some coaches with him. But anyway,
we're not going to open that.
We're not going into that. We're not going into that. All right. Let's wrap this thing up. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. You can follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon on Twitter. And of course, Black and Gold Banneret, where we are your home for UCF sports on the SB Nation Network, where we got lots of content coming at you every day, including our newsletter, which you can subscribe to. Thanks to Jeremy Brenner for putting that together every weekday, 9 a.m., the latest UCF sports-related news in your inbox, not just from us, but around the world of UCF sports. And also we're going to be pretty high up there this next couple days with the draft news. Luke Saris has a couple previews up for Richie Grant, Aaron Robinson. We'll have a couple other things going up there as players, as we do hear players get selected. We'll be sure to break that information for you as soon as that happens. Eric, it's going to be a big week, man.
Man, it's NFL draft's fun. Let's enjoy it. And hopefully we see the UCF guys end up in places we want them to end up and not against, like in my situation where I have to deal with Gabe Davis now a couple times a year.
I want my Giants to draft a UCF guy. I don't know who. I don't care. I think the Giants have drafted one UCF player in franchise history. It was Darcy Johnson. And by the way, I always thank Darcy because he gave me an autographed picture of him in a Giants uniform when he came down one time and I met him. He was doing a TV show with us. And my buddy Nate Califf told him, he's like, Jeff's a big Giants fan. And Darcy's like, really? You're a Giants fan? He's like, I'll be right back. He went out to his car and got me a photo and signed it for me. He said, I have it hanging on my wall here on the Wall of Fame. So Giants, come on. Let's get it together, guys. Let's get somebody. Let's get Richie. Let's get Richie. Go. Richie or A-Rob. Let's go. Or Tay. I'll take Tay. I'll take anybody.
You need help in the secondary? It sounds like you're calling for secondary help.
I want some secondary help. We need some receiver help too. I wouldn't mind getting Marlon. Okay? Take a flyer on Marlon late rounds, see what we got. Little speed burner for Daniel Jones to throw to. I'll take it. Marlon's got good hands. Just saying.
Giants could use that. We got Galladay though.
Yeah. We got Galladay. We got Evan Ingram coming back, but
well, he definitely needs help with the hands.
Yeah, I know. So
anyway, all right. That's enough Giant talk for the show.
I know. I'm done with that. NFL Draft tomorrow. We'll be watching it, following along with you. Follow us at UCF_Banneret. For Eric and all of us here at Black Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Singh. Thank you for listening. This has been the Black Gold Banneret Podcast.